if I traded it all.
Welcome to the show, everyone. As you all know, I made it possible for everybody to talk about themselves. Who doesn't like to talk about themselves right on the radio? That is what we're doing here. We are live on Facebook. So hi to everybody out there. Like us and follow us. We're going to be sharing the show right afterwards. My first guest has been on my show with me now, 4 years, I think it is almost now.
Yeah.
I have with me Michael Van Vleck, and he's the owner of Denali Real Estate. Welcome to the show.
Thank you,
got to
Carol.
tell everybody.
Thank
You are here. You love to come here, and you love to educate people.
I do. I love it because of the snacks that you give us. It's my favorite, the cookies and candy.
Oh, my God, the water. The water.
The best water I've had.
Thank you. You know what? Thank KFNX for that.
I appreciate you, KFNX.
So tell everybody a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Yeah, of course. Denali Real Estate is an Arizona-based real estate brokerage. We help investors both buy and sell property. We also do property management.
Tell everybody, one of the things that you like to do is to arm people with great information so that they can make good decisions.
That's right. I mean, you're taking the words right out of my mouth.
I wrote it down the last time you said it.
You're right, though. I mean, it is about that. It's about giving people information so they can make good decisions. Particularly, in our world, real estate, if it's not the biggest, it's one of the biggest assets that people have. So it is a big deal for them. So we want to treat it as if it is a big deal, because it is. So we want to be meticulous about the way we go about things. And this small little snippet of what we talk about today is just part of that. It's part of the thought process. And the idea is give people some information. They can think about things maybe they didn't think about and potentially make better decisions.
And if you need someone, he's the person to call. He loves to educate you guys out there. A lot of people try and do it on their own, and that's very hard to do. So let's talk. What are we here to talk about today?
Today we're going to talk about, if you have a rental property, you're thinking about hiring a property manager. Most people don't know how to go about that process.
Okay.
What do you do? So we want to just give some basic information on things that you should know, not just before you actually search for one, but also how do you find one.
So how do you find one? Well, let's start it off with, you first got to search.
Well, you do, but before you even search, in other words, if you kind of jump in the water without knowing how to swim, you're probably going to drown. So before you jump in the water, we kind of give you some tips on how to swim a little bit. So
okay.
Things that you might want to know before you begin your search. One thing is, I always tell people this at a very high level, and nobody ever gets it until I explain it, but when you hire a property manager, make sure you retain the ownership of the property. And it doesn't, and this is sort of theoretical, you're not saying, hey, here's my property, it's yours now. But the idea is that you don't want to hire anybody where you're still not in control, right? And sadly, there's a lot of times where people hire a property manager where they lose control of their property. So as the owner, you want to be consulted on everything. It doesn't matter. In some cases, people say, well, I don't have any experience in this. I don't know what I'm doing. That's okay. If you have a really good property manager, it won't matter, because they will contact you and they'll walk you through those things and explain it so that you are learning as you go. Right? As opposed to saying, well, you don't know anything, we'll just handle it.
Right.
The problem with that is, in a lot of cases, you end up in a position as an owner that you don't want to be. You're sort of stuck, or the management company is doing things that may not be in your best interest. So.
Well, and you work with people how?
Well, in our case, I do a couple of things. One, this sort of process where we explain things to folks, give them information so they can make better decisions. I mean, that's just part of the process. There's several steps, and we'll go over some of those items on how do we ensure that an owner not only stays in control of their property, but they actually have a management company behind them pushing things that are in their best interest.
Tell them how long you've been doing this.
I've been doing it almost 20 years. I've been doing it in Arizona as 11 years. I'm the owner of Denali Real Estate, the brokerage, and we do manage properties all across the valley.
You're rated with the BBB?
We are. We have an A rating with the Better Business Bureau, and we have great reviews on their website. You can check us out on Google. We have great reviews there, too.
Check him out on his website. It's DenaliArizona.com. You can also call him direct. There's always someone there to answer the phone. The phone number is 480-626-4062. So retaining ownership,
that's
most
right.
important thing.
That is important. It's something that you do, and there's a number of ways that you do that. So one way would be every property management company makes you sign a management agreement. So you have to sign an agreement. It's required that you have a written agreement. There's a few important things in there where people kind of get lost. Number one, in our case, you can cancel our agreement at any time without penalty. That's really important because people going into this, they say, well, gosh, I hope I picked the good manager. I hope, they're going to do this or that. I always tell folks, look, if we're not doing all the things that I've committed to you, you'll fire us. And I expect that you would. But the difference is that because we can be fired anytime, we're always fighting for our clients, right? Because today could be our last day. In a lot of cases, management companies, what they do is you can terminate at any time, and they'll use that as a tag thing or a marketing thing. But the reality is that they have a termination penalty. So, in other words, if you sign an agreement for 12 months and you only go 3 months, you still owe them for 9 months. Other companies actually tie the agreement somehow to the lease agreement. So, in other words, let's say they've gone 12 months, but your tenant's lease agreement still goes for another 12 months. You still owe them for the 12 months of the remaining lease. So it gets very difficult at that point, given that these sort of events. It's very hard to terminate your manager at that point because there's always some sort of penalty that you pay. I always say you should never pay a penalty if your property manager isn't doing what they're supposed to, or more importantly, this is how I structure it, is if something as a client changes in your life, you shouldn't be somehow held to a contract that's hurtful to you, right? If you're client focused, you'll construct an agreement that's friendly to the owner, that's in their best interest. So, that's what I believe. So our agreement, cancel anytime, no penalty.
Right. And when you say you're always fighting for your client, what do you mean by that?
Well, I think one of the comments I get from a lot of people is they say, I have a property manager, but I feel like they're always advocating for the tenant. And here's what I mean by that. For example, something happens at the property. A classic example would be the tenant calls and says, my toilet is clogged. I can't get it unclogged. We send somebody there. They can't get it unclogged. So what we typically do is take the toilet off, break it open, and take a picture of what's inside. And I guarantee you at that point, it's something the tenant stuffed in there. Well, if that happens, the tenant just bought the toilet. A lot of times, the management company isn't fighting for the owner. The reality is that as a property manager, we have a fiduciary responsibility to the owner, okay? But the tenant is our mutual customer. Okay, there's a big legal distinction there. Our customer is somebody, you want to treat them well, you want to make sure that they're happy, but there's also limitations to that. And that is that our ultimate responsibility is to the owner, who's the client. And so we need to make sure that we're doing that. We're looking out for their best interest. We're trying to find the right tenant, but also managing the process as if we were the owner.
Right, and that's awesome, and that's why I want you to say that. You will help anyone from anywhere, correct, in Valley-wide?
Yeah, we do. We cover the whole valley, and we have properties in every city in the valley. So. Now,
their website is DenaliArizona.com. You can call them direct. Their phone number is 480-626 4062. Okay, so we're on the fees. Let's talk. We have 1 minute. Do you want to just talk a little bit about it?
Fees. I'm going to blaze through this. So management fees are things you need to ask for, right? In our case, it's very simple. We have a flat fee management. It's $85 a month only when you have a tenant and only when they pay rent. So no tenant, no rent. You don't pay us anything. We're
going to come back and talk a little bit about that because that is very cool. You can't just just throw that out.
No,
it's huge.
It is. Huge. It's an advantage a lot of people like. But our fee structure, it is very competitive. But I don't say always shop based on fees, right? It's about service.
It's about service, and that is what you're all about. And that's why you fight for your clients all the time. And you said you have a fiduciary what?
Fiduciary responsibility. His number is area code 480-626-4062. It's DenaliArizona.com. So welcome back, everyone. We're talking with Michael Van Vleck, and he is the owner of Denali Real Estate. And we've been talking a little bit about, how to hire a property manager, important things to know. That's right.
And what I love about you is that you like to, you're explaining what to know, but you're also telling them what you do. And it's amazing some of the things that you offer. We were just talking about fee agreements. Will you please go through that again? You could not throw that just out there like that.
Okay, fine. So we, our fees, I think the fees are one thing that it's very easy for people to ask about. A lot of managers have a bunch of different fees. Ours is very simple. We have only two. One is the management fee. It's $85 a month. You only pay that when we have a tenant and the tenant pays rent. So if your home is vacant, you're not paying anything. The other fee that we have, which is very consistent with other managers in terms of charging it, our fee is lower. It's $295, and that's to find you a tenant. So when you have a tenant, your home is about to go vacant, we need to do the marketing, advertising, showing the property. We do the tenant screening, write the leases, and do a physical move-in inspection with them. All of that, we charge $295. It's actually below my cost. So I give this to people below my cost. It sounds crazy, but I do this on purpose. And I think this is the crux of our management. It's a secret sauce, if you will.
What's the secret sauce?
So the reason that we don't make money on leasing is a lot of companies will charge a half month or a full month of rent. So if your place rents for $1,000, they're going to charge you $1,000 to find you a tenant. Okay, so that's a big disconnect. If I'm charging you $1,000 to find you a new tenant, or I'm going to make $85 a month to keep the one that we have, you're incentivizing them to find you a new tenant every year. So the way that that's structured, your property management company is making a lot more profit on the leasing part than they actually are the management. So they're more incentivized for turnover.
Right.
So in our case, we're not making money on leasing. So what does that mean? It means my tenant screening process is completely different than everyone else, because I need to have a process that looks for things that are more indicative of longer-term tenants. I want a long-term tenant. I don't want a one-year tenant, because if I have a tenant that only stays a year, I have to go back to leasing and lose money again. But so does the owner. So as an owner, your vacancy period, when your property doesn't have a tenant, your vacancy period is your most expensive time. So you need a manager that is incentivized to avoid that. And this leasing fee being below my cost is how I make sure that we're incentivized to find you a tenant that we think is going to stay long term. Not only that, but we have to treat them better when they're there, because we don't want them to leave. If they leave, we go back to leasing and we lose money again all over. But so does the owner. So now we have a system that's set up where it's win-win, lose-lose, right? So now our interests are aligned with the owner so that we're working together. Not as a management company, we're making money from this owner no matter what happens.
Super. It's
so
awesome what you
there's
do.
lots of events that happen where owners get charged for things like inspections. It's a big coup right now where management companies will go do an inspection at your property every 6 months and charge you every time they go, on top of everything else. When your tenant wants to renew a lease for, say, another year, most management companies charge you to do that too. Like we don't. We don't charge for these things. So it's pretty basic and simple in terms of the fee structure, but how it's structured in terms of the process is really owner-centric and driven. And that's the difference.
He's A+ rated with the Better Business Bureau, and now you know why. His phone number is area code 480-626-4062. It's Denali Arizona.com. Amazing, the different little aspects. There's so many of them that are in place, but the way that your service to your clients is just impeccable.
I always tell people, look, property management companies will all do the same stuff. They'll collect your rent, they'll advertise your place, they'll screen your tenants, they'll do the same basic stuff. The devil is really in the details. If you don't know these details and know exactly what happens and how it goes on, you won't know what to ask. And so as you're calling other companies, it will all seem the same. But if you focus on just these 3 things or 4 things that we're talking about today, it will really guide you to what they do and how they do it.
Well, there's a lot of people out there that own property. There's people that are investors that own property that don't even live here that you work with, I'm sure.
That's right.
But we also have a lot of people out there that try and do all this on their own. And anytime anyone has any questions, you're here to answer.
That's right. They can call. Our office number is 480-626-4062. There's always someone there to answer the phone, which is highly important. I respond to every email every day. So, you can always contact us. We'll get back to you. I had somebody that called me just this week with a tenant issue. We do not manage their property. They needed help, and we got them put in the right direction, and now they're on their way. So
that's what I love about you. Now, maintenance.
Yeah, number one abused area. This is actually the number 2 reason that people fire their existing property manager. I always tell folks, if you're calling property management companies, there's one question you absolutely need to ask, and that is, you say, I have my own handyman. He's unlicensed. And I want to use him for my property. Is that okay? If a management company tells you no, that's not okay, then that's not the place for you. So in other words, a lot of management companies for maintenance have it structured where they have a threshold, 300, 400. If anything happens below that cost, they can just send whoever they want. And they do. I've had owners tell me they've gotten charged $200 for a toilet flapper that went bad.
That's crazy.
These kind of crazy things. Some management companies say you must use their vendors. So if they have their own little vendor group or whatever, they tell you have to use those people. Or they'll say whoever you use has to be licensed. Well, I go back to my point number 1, which is retain ownership, right? You're the owner of this property. If you want to send Uncle Bobby to fix your toilet, that's your choice. And the management company shouldn't be able to tell you who it is that you can and can't send. You're the owner. Right? So that's why I always say, call them and say, hey, Cousin Bobby does plumbing. I like to use him for my handyman stuff. Do you as the management company have an issue? If they tell you yes, then maybe you want to reconsider. This is just, that question will give you an idea of where they are and how much autonomy they'll give you as the owner. It doesn't mean that you have a Cousin Bobby or Uncle Bobby or whoever can do the work. It's that you're trying to find out how do they run their maintenance. You want to ask, do they upcharge on their maintenance? Because a lot of places do.
Would they tell you?
They should. Like in the agreement, some places, if you have a home warranty company, if the management company has to call the home warranty company for you, they charge you for that. So these are the kinds of things you need to ask.
You need to find out these questions and let them, tell because then you're going to decide, do I really want this person or not?
Yeah, so here's how we do it, right? We contact our clients for any maintenance item. We do not do anything, send anybody, unless the owner approves us to do so. We do not require them to use our vendors. We do not require them to use a licensed vendor. They can use whomever it is that they choose. We have lots of great vendors we use for lots of things. Our clients are not obligated in any way to use them. So our maintenance approach is really kind of goes by what it is that their wishes are. If they like us to do it this way, fine. Some owners that we have do their own maintenance.
Some people probably want you to just take care of it. They don't want to deal with it.
Some do that too. Right. But the idea is that some owners will say, I want the ability to do it on my own if I have the time. Otherwise,
it's all about retaining ownership.
Retaining ownership, right? It doesn't mean that you are going to do it. You're going to go fix whatever. It means you have the choice to do it if you want to. So this idea is retain ownership, be the owner to control the process.
Okay, so anything more maintenance?
No, I think as long as you ask about the maintenance and how they work it, make sure there's no upcharges, and make sure that you can do what it is that you want there.
Okay, what about leasing? Real quick.
Okay, leasing's a big deal. I think number one thing about leasing, if you call the management company and they don't answer the phone, they're probably not answering the phone for people looking for your rental too. It's kind of a big deal.
Good point.
Yeah, so another thing I would say in terms of leasing is ask the management company, do they physically show your property for a tenant? A lot of companies now are going to these lock boxes. You call their office, they give you a code, you go in and show yourself. I think it's a bad idea. I don't know of any owner that likes that idea of somebody just going to their property on their own.
It's awful.
We physically show, a licensed agent goes and shows every property. So it's a big question to ask. So make sure you're asking, do they physically show? I saw one management agreement from another company. If you want them to physically show the property, there's another fee for that too.
That's terrible.
It is.
Oh my God. They nickel and dime you.
They really do.
You got to be careful, guys.
Another thing I'd say about leasing, and it's the final thing, is we're the only management company I know that does not charge people upfront application fees. You want to apply for a home, it doesn't cost you a dime.
That's awesome. You guys got to check him out. It's DenaliArizona.com. His phone number is 480-626-4062. Less than a minute. How do you find a property manager?
Easy. There's a couple of things.
Call here right now. He's here.
You can do that. You can ask people you know. Like word of mouth referrals are always great. Another easy way, the the internet, right? You can do a search on Google. There's other sites like vendor type sites like Angie's List that we're on. We're A-rated on Angie's List. You can check reviews there. There's other sites like Thumbtack that we get all property management. These are all searches you can do on the internet to find management companies. You can also go, if you want, you see a company, check them out on the Better Business Bureau. See how they're rated and what people say about them there.
You can also write the number down right here. The number is area code 480-626-4062. It's DenaliArizona.com.